Well, I mean, there's tons of ways you can contribute. Obviously, lots of people like to write code, and that's cool. But on that side, we also need people to review code. So even if you're not writing stuff, then reviewing it, that's actually something that I do a lot. I'll review code. Something that's super important is manually testing that the code works. So you don't need to know anything about the code, don't have to review it or anything, but just basically, testing it out. And those are great for like site builders, actually even, new people to Drupal. That's actually a good activity that as long as you've, kind of gotten around a little bit, that you could test something, and that's a great contribution. Something that I like to do a lot is mentoring. And so obviously, you might feel like you have to be a little bit more in the game and a little more senior in order to do mentoring. But we are hoping actually to have a mentoring, Mentor the Mentors Summit at some point fairly soon, where we're going to hopefully train mentors. So people who may want to be a mentor but aren't really sure exactly how that works. So join the Slack mentoring channel if you want to be a mentor and would like to be mentored to be a mentor. Very meta. So yeah, documentation. I mean, the nice thing about Drupal.org is most pages on Drupal.org have a little edit, and you can just, you see a problem, you want to expand it, easy, just press edit. There are some pages that are locked down, but for the most part, everything's pretty good. Wow, I mean, there's so many ways that you can contribute. It's hard to even go into all the different avenues, but yeah, I mean, basically, if you know accessibility, awesome. If you know usability, like, you don't have to be a coder. Whatever skills you've got, then you can totally contribute. So I've done, I don't know, some of those areas I don't help out with, like I don't know that much about accessibility, for example, but in the past I've done a lot with like multilingual work and helping, review patches and do manual testing and that kind of thing. Lately I've been doing a lot of, so I'm mostly in the mentoring channel. So we try to mentor at events. So like DrupalCon North America, we did a mentor contribution event, which was great. And then I help out with Bug Smash, which is any bug, we can try to smash it. So especially old ones, like we're really trying to get like the old stuff and improve the kind of overall age of bugs in general to try to reduce that number. And the team has been doing a great job there. And I'm also helping out with the Drupal 10 readiness initiative and trying to not only get core ready for Drupal 10, but there's so much in the contributed projects area that still haven't even gotten to 9, even though they're technically ready to go. So trying to help with that as well. So there's a lot. I think it's been I haven't seen a lot of videos within, the documentation on Drupal.org. Certainly people, companies that use Drupal, they'll have their own, blog posts and, promotions and all that. So outside of, Drupal.org, is a lot of great material. And you talked about the live streams like Matt and Jeff are doing and things like that. And those are great ways of, tapping into not just, the newest, greatest thing in Drupal, but also contribution. I know that like Matt in particular has been doing stuff with Simply Test Me, which is part of a contribution that he does that I'm hoping to help out with as well soon. So as far as actually getting them into, embedding them within the Drupal.org documentation, that's a really, I think it's a little tricky because I think, if I remember right, you can't just, it's like locked down, like what kind of content you can actually stick into the regular editable pages. And once you start trying to do stuff that's a little bit richer content, then yeah, I think you have to have special permissions in order to do that. Well, obviously you can link out to stuff, kind of a little bit different, but I mean, that's certainly interesting. Some people really engage well with video. And yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting idea. Something maybe we could talk with. There's a documentation channel in Slack, and then Jennifer does a ton of documentation. There are meetings for documentation for like the help stuff. But oh, so one thing actually the documentation group is working a lot on, which is very relevant, is the contribution guide. So that has been sort of reworked, and they're trying to port over that documentation. Actually, that's a great place to contribute, because even if you're new, because you might not understand, and you can just say, hey, I don't understand this section. I want to try to follow the steps you have. I don't get it. So that is it's a great place to contribute, where you're giving the tools to other contributors to help out. And I really like the new structure that they've done, where you can pick a task, like I want to do a code review, and it explains the whole process. I want to do manual testing, explains the whole process, right? So I think they've thought through the structure of that really well, and they're still trying to just port over the kind of the old content into the new structure, and it's going pretty well. I haven't really done videos so much, but I've done, some blog posts where I'm heavily pointing back to Drupal.org and saying, hey, this is a good page for this. This is a good page. Go look at this one. And it was really nice, actually. I was on a call with, I think it was some folks from India who are doing a lot of contribution, and they wanted it was kind of a mentoring call, and they're like, oh, we love this blog post you wrote. It has all the stuff that we need. And it was for a contribution event we had last year. And where I think it was for Drupal 9 readiness. Yeah. So Drupal 9 readiness is now Drupal 10 readiness. But some of the same things still apply, right? We're still trying to get the contributed projects from, 8 to 9, and then eventually from 9 to 10. But it was nice that, yeah, sometimes people actually do find that stuff very relevant and can go off to the right place. So obviously Gabor, but he might be slammed, I don't know, for Drupal 10. And actually, so also on Drupal 10, Chris Dark is another one who's been pretty involved there, especially on sort of the mentoring, so on both sides, the mentoring and on the Drupal 10 initiative. So he's another person that I just talked to him this morning. So yeah, he's around. He's in London, so London time. That's closer to you. Be a little more sane hours, maybe. But yeah, there's a lot of amazing people in Drupal. So I went to a number of virtual events during that time, and there are a lot of advantages. I was a little bit like, I really wanted to go to this thing, but it was a lot better than I realized. It's so flexible, right? You just go make yourself something to eat, you pop back in, you go attend to something you need to attend to, and you pop back in, right? Just being able to just do what you need to do has been super fantastic. The other thing is I ended up getting really, really bad sciatica. So I don't know if you know what that is, but it's quite painful. It got really, really bad. And there were times where I was so bad I couldn't attend some of the conferences, but when I could, there were times where I was attending the conference on my phone, because I had to, kind of lie down and, because of my pain. But I wanted some distraction, so it was nice to have something to, attend, to kind of keep my mind off of things. So there were some limitations. If you're on a phone, some of the platforms aren't necessarily the best. I remember being on one where I joined one of the sessions. Actually, I think it was Carrie Fisher was giving an accessibility session, and she's like, oh, yeah, she saw that I jumped in, and because it had it in the side, and she's, oh, hi, Kristen. And I couldn't chat back to her from the phone, it was, you know, it was like all blocked and everything. And I'm like, oh, I'm really trying to say hi, but I can't. So that was kind of frustrating. So it was interesting being sort of temporarily disabled, because I was able to see, like, some people have to deal with this kind of stuff all the time, right? And yeah, there were definitely some limitations when you know, went to kind of a mobile device in order to interact with some of these. But there's just so many advantages. I mean, the transcripts, you know, on the bottom, you know, if you need to, you know, be able to read, you got kids running around in the background or whatever. It's all been, you know, it ended up being much, much better than I realized it would be. I mean, I miss being in person, because, you know, it's hard to replace that. But I see a role of virtual, like, I'm hoping that there will be some really good, and maybe this is the event, but some solid virtual events yearly, that, you know, we all look forward to. So I was locked down in Central California. We're kind of still back and forth a little bit, but so it was actually interesting. I liked the place, even though it's quite remote. Lots of bunnies and squirrels and rattlesnakes, which I'm not a big fan on. I try to stay away from those, but so that it was kind of interesting to be kind of locked down in this very, very rural sort of area where there's hardly anyone around. I mean, we had neighbors, but just hardly anyone. It was very low density. But normally I live in Santa Cruz, which is where I am at the moment. And it's just so weird. All of a sudden, there's just cars everywhere. And it's not even a huge city, but it just feels like, whoa, like, why are all these people here? I don't understand, because it's just such a weird, I don't know, dichotomy, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I like photography. I like nature. I like travel. Applying for an Australian visa right now, so I'm going through that process. Actually working with an Australian company, just, I don't know, kind of fell in my lap, and been doing that the last few weeks, just for fun. I am not a surfer. I love the water, but yeah, I certainly know Drupal people here. Do they surf? I don't think so. One is really big. Daryl Richmond is huge on motorcycles. So, I mean, if you want to do, like, he does, like, motorcycles through Europe, and across the US and everything. So definitely, if you needed a motorcycle guy, gotcha. But okay, I will take that as my homework, is see who's the local surfer geek. We need some surfer geeks. All right. I think it's very valuable to try to use, you know, the open source tools, and use you know, like Drupal tools that, you know, you're trying to you know, use. They say, what do they say? Eat your own dog food, which isn't the the best phrase, but they do say that. But yeah, certainly, I mean, it's very honorable, and I think it's the right thing to do mostly. But the problem is, like, IRC went to Slack, right? And it's not going back, right? It's not going back. So sometimes the corporations put so much money into the tools that just do it so well, and they're so, you know, just everyone uses them, that I don't know, you just kind of say, okay, fine, I'm going to use this tool that, you know, is some billionaire made and is making lots of money, whatever. But I mean, ideally, yeah, I would say, if you're able to do it with the open source tools, I mean, that's the only way they're going to get better, right? Is to use them and then say, hey, this was kind of glitchy. Well, okay, well, then maybe we can fix it. But I don't know, it's tough. I mean, yeah, Zoom sort of owns that space, and Slack, you know, it's a little hard to get out of the. I mean, what about, like, Google Docs and things? Like, what do you do there? I mean, yeah, it's hard. It's hard for sure. I don't see it in the near future. I think it really kind of depends. It's been going, in that quadrant, the enterprise, further up the chain and competing with these, very proprietary high-end systems. The more it competes in that space, then I think the more I don't know legally or whatever, I don't know how that works. Like, can someone just do it and take it over and kind of brand it and do the kind of thing that Oracle did? I don't know legally, but I could see as a corporation that might be very attractive to do something like that, especially as it's kind of competing with some of those bigger players. But I hope not. I used to do Java back in the day, back in the .com boom. I don't know if you're old enough to know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it was interesting because it was all about these big corporations and J2EE and yada yada and all that stuff. And the thing that really attracted me to Drupal, first I just puttered with the technology and I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. I was coming from object oriented and it was like, what is this thing? This is hooks and whatnot. Very strange, but I don't know. I kind of grew to, enjoy especially the content architecture and kind of being able to have reusable content, all that kind of stuff. That just like really clicked with me. But then once I knew there was a community, it took me a few years. And then I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, there are people. And I mean, in Santa Cruz, we had a user group. Sadly doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, Bad Camp and Stanford Camp and all these places where I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'm totally sticking with this. This is fun. I like these people, right? So for me, it's people first. There's so much technology out there. I mean, Drupal's great. I love Drupal, but I mean, there's so many different things that you can use for just use the right tool, use a good tool for the job, right? I wouldn't build a little teeny site. Like, a friend of mine wanted my friend, she cuts hair. She wanted a site. I was like, just do a Facebook page. She's like, no, I really want a site. I'm like, okay. Well, I don't know, Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, whatever. Just you build your own little thing. Oh, but I don't know how. So I had my son create a little Wix site. Oh, hate Wix, just saying. I will say that on being recorded, it was, had some serious issues. But anyway, so he makes this little Wix site. And anyway, I'm not sure where exactly I was going with that, but that was not the right tool for the job. But yeah, use the right tool. And I mean, I wouldn't use Drupal for that, right? It was just like a 5-page site and super simple and whatever. But I do love Drupal. And especially I've been doing a lot of architecture recently on this project. And I don't know, I just get a real kick out of like we're doing like web components and figuring out all of the, reusable pieces. And I don't know, it's just fun. So I hope it doesn't go away. I think we need to really just play off of the strengths of Drupal. So being able to do the web services and definitely embracing the decoupled architecture. That's what I'm working on right now with this Australian group, because we can't do everything, right? You need to just like focus on what works well in Drupal and really double down on that. And then integrate whatever makes sense. If it's the analytics stuff, the marketing automation, whatever. I mean, we don't need to be everything, right? There's lots of good tools. Now, those are commercial. Sometimes they're commercial or whatever, but even so, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny. There used to be this like small core movement. You've been around long enough, you probably remember that, but. I'm not in the mind of like, we need to have a small core, but I'd say let's what we do, just make it so interoperable with other systems. Just make that part super easy for people to plug in and extend it. Because I think that's really, for me, has always been a big plus of Drupal, right? Now I've tinkered with WordPress in the past, but just that kind of like integrating with anything else just seemed like kind of a nightmare. But I'm not a WordPress person, so I mean, I withhold judgment there. I mean, it's a great tool for the right purpose, right? So, but yeah, I'd say working on all the JSON API work and just, yeah, making it super solid and integrating with, especially like you mentioned, other open source tools that are really solid, right? Any kind of collaborations that we can have with them. And we've talked about that for years, right? Getting off the island came with Symfony, started getting off the island. We need to do more of that and just, double down on the strengths of Drupal. And I think we will get more. I mean, I think one of the problems with Drupal, the Drupal community or the technology, is really recruiting new people, right? Especially, I mean, age shouldn't matter, but kind of, the up and coming people. I've been doing Drupal for almost 20 years, right? I mean, that's kind of crazy. We want people to come in and be able to, be on Drupal for another 20 years. So I think tapping into those other communities and showing how Drupal shines, then maybe we can get some cross-pollination